After all this time, Spider-Man never met Hawkeye or Loki? What kind of spider is he anyway? A recluse? Want more surprising MCU heroes that never entered Spidey's web? Keep watching. While it's true that Peter Parker and Natasha Romanoff fought as allies under Team Tony Stark in Captain America Civil War, the two arachnid-themed Avengers didn't really get to know each other at the airport battle. As audiences saw in Peter's videos of his trip to Germany in Spider-Man Homecoming, the young hero didn't take part in Iron Man's strategic meetings with his fellow Sokovia Accords enforcers, and when Spider-Man leapt into battle, most of his energy and attention went to fighting the Falcon, the Winter Soldier, Captain America, and Ant-Man. By the time the skirmish ended, Natasha had already run away after turning traitor, while Spider-Man was taken out of commission due to injuries sustained from the giant-sized Ant-Man's accidental backhand. Spider-Man and the Black Widow would later find themselves fighting against a common enemy once more, albeit on different battlegrounds in Avengers Infinity War, but it doesn't seem like they had a chance to cross paths. Spidey was taking the fight directly to Thanos on Titan, while Black Widow fought in the Battle of Wakanda to stop Thanos' forces from taking the last Infinity Stone. Sadly, Peter was among those who vanished in the blip, and while he did manage to return to the land of the living, Natasha had to sacrifice her life to make that possible. Save for his impromptu trip to space in Avengers Infinity War, the MCU's Spider-Man is a self-described friendly neighborhood hero who's more comfortable going on grounded, street-level adventures. Unsurprisingly, many of the heroes he hasn't met in this universe are of the cosmic variety, and he can't get more otherworldly than the God of Thunder himself, Thor. The first time Spider-Man and Thor had an opportunity to meet each other was during the final battle in Avengers Endgame. However, they didn't even get the chance to banter, though the web-slinger did get to fly through the sky via Mjolnir, thanks to a last-minute save from the unexpectedly worthy Steve Rogers. After Tony Stark's funeral, the Asgardian decided to join the Guardians of the Galaxy as part of a period of self-reflection, while the spider-powered teenager continued to serve as one of New York's few remaining active superheroes. In the comics, Peter Parker and Bruce Banner are among the brightest scientific minds in their universe. As for their alter egos, while the Hulk is one of Earth's mightiest warriors, Spider-Man's no slouch in the strength department either. Thus, it would have been simultaneously amazing and incredible to see Peter Parker talk science with Bruce Banner, and to watch Spider-Man and the Hulk have a marvelous team-up. While Spider-Man was busy helping Tony Stark bring in Steve Rogers in Captain America Civil War, the Green Behemoth was off-world. In Avengers Infinity War, Spider-Man lent a much-needed helping hand to Iron Man in fighting off Cull Obsidian, largely because the Hulk didn't want to come out of Bruce following his defeat at the hands of Thanos. It doesn't seem like Spidey and Bruce had much of a chance to trade contact info during the battle. While Webhead and J-Jaws both pitched in during the final battle in Avengers Endgame, the two could have been science bros didn't really have the chance to partner up. All things considered, the Guardians of the Galaxy would probably seem like an interesting crew for Peter Parker, a weirdly charismatic team of oddballs and outlaws with a strange sense of humor. While he did get to converse with half the team in Avengers Infinity War, the fact that Peter hadn't had any meaningful interactions with Rocket, Groot, or Gamora should be rectified in a future MCU production. As for the other half of the team, Spider-Man fought alongside Star-Lord, Drax, Mantis, and Nebula on Titan in a failed attempt to take the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos before he could complete the Infinity Stones. This ended in Spidey and some of the surviving Guardians getting dusted and staying dead for 5 years. Upon their return in Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man found himself allied in battle with the Guardians once again, as well as a time-displaced version of Gamora. However, despite being on the same battlefield, Spider-Man didn't really get the opportunity to meet the rest of the crew. When Ant-Man sided with Captain America's team in Captain America Civil War, he didn't have the Wasp on his side. For a brief period of time, though, the Wasp almost made it to Team Cap's roster before the Russo brothers decided that the story of her introduction would be better served in a movie that didn't already have too many characters and storylines on its plate. While the decision to have Scott Lang join Team Cap without Hope Van Dyne ultimately allowed her to have a proper official costume debut in Ant-Man and the Wasp, it was still a missed opportunity for the stinging superheroine to butt heads against Spider-Man. Spider-Man and the Wasp would later get a shot at fighting on the same side in Avengers Endgame following their revival after getting dusted by Thanos. However, they still didn't get the chance to interact with each other during the extremely crowded final fight, and despite the fact that they both showed up at Tony Stark's funeral, audiences didn't get to see them meet each other or swap stories. Despite her significant role in Thor's early MCU mythology, Lady Sif hasn't been seen that often in subsequent movies. In fact, she didn't even show up in Thor Ragnarok and was confirmed to have died during the blip in Avengers Infinity War. It's safe to assume that, like the rest of the heroes brought back in Avengers Endgame, the fierce Asgardian warrior was alive during the final battle against Thanos, but audiences didn't get to see her, if so. Incidentally, this also meant that Spider-Man likely never got to meet her or witness her abilities on the battlefield. Realistically, there probably isn't much that Spider-Man and Lady Sif would have to talk about, nor would they really have any solid reason to interact. Nevertheless, it's always a treat to see how a conversation between an Earthling and an Asgardian goes, especially if said conversation involved the jocular Spider-Man and the somewhat serious Lady Sif. Either way, hopefully they get along better than Sif and Loki did.
I hope you know you deserve to be alone, and you always will be.
Speaking of the God of Mischief, if Peter Parker ever gets to meet Loki, their encounter would doubtlessly be full of hilarity. Spider-Man's humorous jabs and naive observations would probably amuse or irk the trickster god, while Loki's penchant for deception and dishonesty would likely befuddle the web-slinger. That's why it's a shame these two characters never met in an MCU production. Despite the fact that Loki has been on Earth multiple times, none of his Midgardian adventures have caused his path to cross with Spider-Man. While Spidey and the rest of the Avengers were busy trying to fend off Thanos in Avengers Endgame, a version of Loki that branched out from the timeline of 2012's The Avengers ended up having his own adventures on his eponymous Disney Plus show. If one were to be technical about it, Peter Parker did have at least one significant, albeit brief, moment of collaboration with King T'Challa. At a critical point in Avengers Endgame, the teen superhero snags the Infinity Gauntlet from Black Panther with a web line in an attempt to take it as far away from Thanos as possible. Despite this, however, the Black Panther still belongs on this list, simply because he and Spider-Man have not really had any meaningful and direct interactions, despite being on the same battlefield not once, but twice. The first opportunity that Spider-Man and the Black Panther could have had for formal introductions took place in Captain America Civil War during the lengthy airport battle scene. However, both superheroes had their hands full trying to subdue their respective opponents and didn't really get the opportunity for chit-chat. Considering that Chadwick Boseman sadly passed away in 2020, it seems that their brief interaction in Endgame will be the extent of their relationship for the foreseeable future. Clint Barton is one of the MCU's founding Avengers, and also happens to be one of the most oft-underestimated heroes in the cinematic universe due to his lack of fancy abilities. Nevertheless, he has proven countless times that he can hold his own in the company of Earth's mightiest heroes, and has played a crucial role in virtually every major battle since the Avengers were founded. He even helped the heroes win the day against Thanos' forces in Avengers Endgame. Unfortunately, his part in that grand skirmish did not involve meeting Spider-Man at all. Among all the MCU's superpowered heroes, Peter Parker is perhaps the most human. Without a doubt, he would find some form of kinship in Clint, who could probably teach him a thing or two about acting more mature and getting over his insecurities in front of the costumed superhero crowd. If Hawkeye's uneasy partnership with Kate Bishop in the Disney Plus Hawkeye series is any indication, the Avenging Archer would actually make a better teacher for a young hero like Spider-Man than he'd be willing to admit. Spider-Man and the Vision fought side by side in Captain America Civil War under the leadership of Iron Man. However, much like the other heroes that joined Team Tony, Spider-Man didn't get the chance to interact with the Infinity Stone-powered synthezoid on the silver screen. This lack of interaction between Spider-Man and the Vision in MCU movies is a missed opportunity for the young scientist to be able to understand cutting-edge technology and artificial intelligence from a radically different point of view. In a world full of gamma-powered monster men and hammer-wielding gods, an artificial being like the Vision still pushes the boundaries of modern technology, and there's little doubt that the science-inclined Spider-Man would be thrilled at the prospect of talking to a lifelike machine. On the flip side, spending more time with Spider-Man could help the Vision to better understand what it means to be a human being. Hopefully, a future Marvel movie could provide an opportunity for Peter to flex his scientific prowess while helping the Vision in his mission to come to terms with his own humanity. For the first decade of the MCU's run, Shang-Chi has been completely absent from silver screen depictions of its world-shaking events. And because the super-heroic martial artist only made his debut in 2021's Shang-Chi, it's not surprising that he hasn't had the chance to meet many of the MCU's heroes, including Spider-Man. That said, it's worth noting that Shang-Chi takes place after the blip was undone and likely before the events of Spider-Man Far From Home. In other words, when Shang-Chi first shows up on everyone's radar, Peter Parker isn't on the run yet as a result of Mysterio blowing his secret identity wide open. Realistically, there's plenty of time for Spider-Man and Shang-Chi to meet. Maybe Shang-Chi could teach Peter Parker a thing or two when it comes to martial arts.
You have the wrong guy. Does he look like he can fight? Come on, bro.
Despite being on Earth for an extremely long time, the Eternals have been conspicuously absent from virtually all of the major battles that kept it safe from alien invaders and would-be conquerors. This explains why the MCU heroes, including Spider-Man, have never crossed paths with them in previous films. However, with the departure of many MCU mainstays following the events of Avengers Endgame, there's plenty of room in the sandbox for the Eternals to play, and just as many opportunities for them to get tangled up in Spider-Man's web. In an interview with Screen Rant, the cast members were asked which MCU heroes they'd be most excited to work with. Interestingly, 2 of them name-dropped Spider-Man. According to Don Lee, he'd love to test his strength against the Hulk or team up with Spider-Man if he reprises his role as Gilgamesh. Meanwhile, for Liam McHugh, who plays Sprite, the answer is a no-brainer. Of course, Spider-Man. Tom Holland, duh. I would absolutely love to be in a movie with him. Hey, get in line. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.